Hello, hi. On location briefly, and I will, I went to Home Depot because it was a street party last Saturday. So I went to Home Depot, took the bus, and the poor woman's way. All right, but because I had a car years ago, so the poor woman's way, which has been continuing for quite some time, and I go with my husband in the car. So took the bus and then picked up the plans, and then luckily for me, just a half a block away, there was from Home Depot there was a bus stop, and about a short block away, and I back. Then on the way I stopped back home from the subway station or the bus stop. I stopped by a grocery store and even picked up an easy vegetable to make green peppers. So here, that's the background. Let's show you my plants. I planted it the next day. Hosta, hosta. There's a little Christmas tree which also came in the bus. Canada's colors, which worked beautifully yesterday. Oh, let's see. Canada's colors are the red and white coming up. Red and white, red and white, red and white, white and red. And these are more red close up. There's some begonia. There's some. Let's see if I can actually. It's the sun's in my eye. This is a cornflower. Cornflower, cornflower. I'm hoping YouTube is going to cue me. There is the begonia and the gloxinia. So now going inside. And continuing with my. Okay, I just close the door. Sorry. Okay. All right. I'm back here. All right. I had promised myself I would look at the psychology when I planted plants. Which parts of my brain, with relevance to psychology, are activated. I need a sip of water. That was in the computer. I'm worried about the computer. So I couldn't. It was work, right? Digging up. So I really forgot all about my psychology experiment. This morning, when I watered the plants, I observed. So I began with the hosta and the mini Christmas tree and the frontal, this portion, right? And the temporal lobe back were activated. Then let's look at the nodes. Yeah, major was the frontal lobe. So, kind of a little strongly watching, observing. And minor was the temporal lobe. Two colorful flowers, the begonia with the gloxinia, the occipital lobe, and the cornflower, the occipital lobe. All right, which is on the left side here. So occipital lobe. Canada's colors, both frontal and occipital lobes. All right, yeah. So both frontal and occipital lobes. And I reasoned this out. I looked up Very Well Mind and a website on the internet, and they even have a podcast. I started listening. The lady was Mina, I think Mina was taking questions from the audience, but that was not relevant to my discussion. So if you're, and again, I'm not a psychology student to go all out and use all the tools out there. I'm not a psychology major. I'm a chemical engineer with dual master's degrees. So this was a fun experiment, and you can write a paper giving me acknowledgements. But now I've picked up a bit of a background, so maybe a little bit of an acknowledgement in the acknowledgement section. More of an acknowledgement, helpful videos, YouTube videos, and that sort of thing. So very well mind said that the frontal lobe, and another website which had the picture of the brain. And that website, I mean, you can look it up, I guess, maybe, because there are a few of those. So all of them highlighted, nicely shown, and all the functions of each, frontal lobe, what areas of the mind's functioning process each area is responsible for. So there's an overlap. That's what the same image below the notes have said. And see, I'm really, I've never done a psychology course. I'm going with what's completely on the website. So Canada's colors, so red and yellow apparently, are responsible for excitement and energy. That's what Very Well Mind says. So so sort of, adapted this kind of reasoning for red and white, Canada's flag colors. So excitement and energy, particularly after yesterday's win, unconsciously at the back of my mind, I say Canada's colors and water. My mind is functioning like that, in that manner. It is, the frontal lobe is getting highlighted, and to the occipital lobe as well. And so for frontal lobe, emotion and personality. So it's interesting. It's an inherent part of my being now. So many years in Canada, so I'm Canadian. So I take pride unconsciously. The frontal lobe is functioning, and so the emotion, of course. Yesterday's win was simply wonderful. So unconsciously, this is all overlaps. The psychology can really, emotions functioning, because it took like a minute or so to get the water, and a few minutes to actually fill the water and go there, and then think Canada's colors, and then water. So if you want to repeat the exercise, I would advise you to get from Home Depot. And so occipital lobe apparently is responsible for image recognition and visual processing. So there's an overlap between these two, but they were clearly separate. All right, they were being highlighted. They were sort of, they were using their cognition, functionality, cognition processes, sort of separately. They were not sort of, all together. Sometimes all together happens, right? I had observed in one of my earlier videos. So the overlap, emotion, image recognition. So I see red and white. I say Canada. Unconsciously, I'm saying, Canada's flag, particularly in lieu of the fact maybe that Canada Day is coming up too, and visual processing. So that was an interesting exercise. Part two was Hosta and mini Christmas tree. Blue and green, relaxation and productivity. That's what they indicate, says Very Well Mind, the website. So blue is not there, but the hosta had browns and greens, and sort of bright yellow in between too, and then reddish brown, and the Xmas plant, of course, is green, mini Xmas plant. So 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 concentration. So hosta highlighted the frontal and temporal lobe, right? So concentration and recognition. So I was sort of concentrating on the task, because it was the first set of plants I watered. So who knows? Maybe I think the Christmas it highlights concentration. I was concentrating on the task, and I was hoping for less small pailfuls of water to be filled. So sort of recognition. Unconsciously, I recognize it's a Christmas tree. In Canada, you come to love the Christmas tree because it grows all around. Winter, when we have no other vegetation, hark, there's a Christmas tree, greenery in the white around. So that sort of thing, and recognition. So those two. But a psychology expert would really put a very good analysis here. or an overlap, he or she could repeat the experiment. And so this was, um, uh, and then I decided I would see what else did I look at. Just a second. I will just see. I think I went to. All right, this was it. The next portion, I went to explain to myself, because I was looking at the brain stem of the brain stem in a medical explanation. Cerebellum was high, was focused on, and the corpus callosum and the medulla oblongata, etc. So that's more of medicine, right? So, and brain, and I thought I need to strengthen my brainstem, because, after I began taking Risperdal, which is given for schizophrenia, but we all know, you also know by now, my husband would, accept this without reasoning, but, I'm not completely, I talk to myself though. I talk to, but I'm not always, it's always not me. It's, the forces around in this world, maybe God Himself, who knows, communicating with me. No, I'm not talking through my heart. All right, if you are wised up to the fact that there are other forces that play here, you must know that it's not completely schizophrenia. Although I do talk to myself. Sometimes I'm going in the grocery store looking, white chocolate chips. I walk around. Yeah, and then almonds, and you don't see all people doing, but there are some people who do it too. So that's that. So I'm being given Risperdal, and I couldn't find, and I had always until now thought it's a aldehyde, Risperdal, DL, acetal, and benzaldehyde, though. Benzetol, I think. So there was on PubChem Risperdal. Risperdal is a very, has fused aromatic compounds like I think toluene, or is it? It's like a dibenzene with a carbonyl compound there. All right, carbonyl compound, and then more of the same, with just a CH group. I think it's on PubChem, and you see more dibenzenes, two more dibenzenes with nitrogen functional groups, and so I thought that this could be, being mimicked as, let's see, pyrimidines and purines, but there was no match there. All right, because the pyrimidines, I think, have the five membered aromatic compound fused together with the six-membered ring structure. So that did not. So purine, of course, is just a six-membered compound. They all have amines and nitrogen molecules. So I reasoning this out. There's a fluorine though attached to the second part of the Risperdal. So is it So it could be reacting. It could be breaking up in the in my brain, all right, and reaching through the blood stream, all parts of my body, and it could be the brain stem has to be, of course, in the brain stem is responsible for sleep and breathing, and sometimes I eat too much sugar, I have difficulty in breathing, so maybe I should strengthen my brain stem. That's how the whole Risperdal reasoning came up. And then sleep, after I started taking Risperdal, I find I have less control. I was always a good wake up though when my son needed me to wake up as a growing child, but I get my fair share of sleep. But I tend to fall asleep, without realizing it at times. After the Risperdal whole thing, and then I lost the whole factor came into my life. I remember I lost my swimming skills, my driving skills became flaky. I developed a bit of a fear, but I continued till I lost my license, until I couldn't renew my G2. So, so brainstem could be strengthened. I have to talk to a doctor and see what vitamin etc. could strengthen my brainstem, and then I would have more power over my sleep. But mostly I don't. But then it's coming back again a little for a while, for a long time in between. I had perfect control on my sleep when I needed to, that sort of thing. So and then the breathing has become more prevalent in my life now. Sometimes I have difficulty in breathing, so this is the brainstem. So I've strengthened my brainstem, maybe. So risperidone could be doing things. It could have changed my DNA a little bit by breaking up, reacting, and then becoming a pyrimidine and a purine, and then mimicking uh, uh, ADGC, achieving, thoughtful, clever, good, clever. That could be happening, or it's doing adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, guanine, cytosine. It could be doing that. So, and then messenger RNA. There's the uracil, the transfer RNA, and ribosomal RNA. So mitochondrial RNA, I think there's a mitochondrial RNA too. So all of these, messenger RNA, messenger RNA. So uracil, and it could be reacting. So there's a fluorine atom attached to risperidone, and I looked at fluorine. Fluorine, what was the point I had on fluorine? Fluorine, fluorine, fluorine. Fluorine reduces tooth decay, etc. It's good, right? Toothpaste have fluorines, and so it produces fluoroquinolones. With fluoroquinolones, and fluoroquinolones are again dibenzene compounds with a nitrogen molecule. So one of the rings on the second compound is has a C, of course. Your C can go out. CNF, or C is gone out. There's a break there. C is gone out. Then it will break up the ring structure, right? So CNF. So CNF, and so that's the benzoquinolone, benzo, fluoroquinolone, and looking up Morrison and Boy has lasted stayed with me since my second year undergraduate degree. It's an and so all of these taurine. Now I should remember this, but then you are all current students. You should know a dibenzene is a taurine. So, but it could be because check out this. This is in essential oils. Essentially, none of the essential oils have dibenzene compounds. They're all single ring structures. And there's this one, phenyl benzoate. So this is also a dibenzene. So these are all 6-membered rings, and some characteristics must maybe coming from benzo of the fluoroquinolones. And fluoroquinolones do what? And that is all I had to discuss. Fluoroquinolones. Fluoroquinolones. It could become a fluoroquinolone, and let's see. Antibiotics, which are used to produce antibiotics. Fluoroquinolones are used to produce antibiotics, and I need higher concentrations of antibiotics because maybe I've fallen sick too many times, and my immune system has reduced, or it's just risperidone. or my my uncle, aunt, I had an older cousin. They all passed away. They were all doctors, so they experimented with me, but they always made sure they gave me half pills. But I got a lot of antibiotics when I was growing up. So and analgesics. So maybe that my immune system has crashed, has reduced a little, not a lot. My body, you eat healthy, you take vitamins, your immune system is going to function. But I need higher concentrations of antibiotics, and that could be because there could be fluoroquinolones, detaching from the risperidone, and and the enzyme catalysis, and that is used to make antibiotics. So it's sitting in my human body, and but antibiotics normally you don't need, right? I mean, who needs antibiotics normally unless you're sick? So it's weakening my immune system sitting there, all right, joining the bloodstream, fluoroquinolone, culprit of the whole thing. All right, my DNA is changing, but in some ways I'm smarter. That could be risperidone. It didn't reduce, what it is supposed to reduce, but it's not all me there. All right, so you can blame them. So, anyways, so that I thought those were the interesting facts I wanted to point out. I guess that was all I had to discuss today. All right, signing off, Gayatri BC. Thank you.